Check, check, check. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. It's a beautiful day here in Dallas, Texas, and we are sky atop. Sound like Josh Pate there. We are in a beautiful day in Dallas, Texas. Perfect start to the show. Thursday night football is going on. We got Sam Houston State and New Mexico State going head-to-head. Aggies versus Bearcats. Oh, wait, we also have NFL going on because I don't really care at this point because it's college football season. We have a fantastic show prepared for you today here on the Stadium Pulse. This is a college football show. If you thought this was NFL, you're wrong. This is only college football around here because it's the best damn sport in the world. This is all powered by Kretschmann Media, so go check out the other channels. If you like those other sports, we got that media prepared for you, all the content in the world that you could ever want. But this is a college football show, so stick around if you love some college football. I don't know how fast I could get through that intro, but like I said, we have a jam-packed show to give you an agenda of what we're going to be talking about today. We have Florida and Texas. We're going to be previewing that show and going through the prediction for what I think is going to be a highly anticipated matchup, at least for myself. There is two teams between 1-3 record and a 3-1, but we'll talk about that game. We have SEC contenders as we're talking about what the title of the show is. We'll talk about the SEC as a conference comparative to the rest of the college football space. We have Vanderbilt and Alabama. If you don't know why that game is important, don't know how to help you. Then we have some of my best bets for the weekend. Sometimes when you see enough value on the board, you got to make a segment on the show. And then we're going to do Florida State versus Miami. Week 5 of the college football season was a jam-packed. I couldn't even think of the best adjective to describe what we had in week 5 of the college football season. So if you want to go see all of my reactions, we did damn near an hour-long show just yesterday on Wednesday, going through as many games as possible. So if you want to see my reactions to any of those teams that played a marquee game, go check it out. We've had a long discussion around it. But if you want to see it chopped up into the different teams and games that we were talking about, go check out the videos tab. We have all the Medium content that's going to be continuously being posted on this channel as we continue to grow. And I will just say this before we dive in. Thank you guys. All the interactions we've had with this channel has been such positivity, and it has been a great sign that we are going to continue to have a great channel and build as it's in its infancy at this point. And hopefully we start to grow up as we get through this first season of college football for the channel. Which quarterback's going to wake up in this game? And I'm talking Florida and Texas. You have Texas, who is a 6.5 point favorite by the time we're recording this, walking into the swamp. This is the second game of the Arch Manning era that the national media and attention are really going to be honed in on. We could talk about how, Arch Manning flexed on a Sam Houston State player. That's nothing at the end of the day. We could talk about how they struggled against UTEP. That's something at the end of the day. And what are they going to look like when they played Ohio State in the shoe in Columbus, traveling to Gainesville in the swamp? Now, both of these programs are coming off of a bye. Both of these programs have varying levels of expectations. One has potentially one foot out the door in terms of the era, the coaching staff that is currently with this team. And then the other one is potentially in a position where they could be 3-2 going into their biggest rivalry spot against Oklahoma, potentially John Mateer coming back, a make or break point in the season that had national title aspirations. We're talking about the preseason number one team in the country ending up going into their biggest spot with 2 losses. We could be in that position. Now, for Arch Manning in this offense, what is honest and fair expectations? Because we've talked ad nauseum about Texas and during their September stretch and how they had the blessing of not only having a bye week, but 3 straight non-competitive games with UTEP, and then you have Sam Houston State, who hasn't won a football game. Potentially tonight they will. Then you also have UTSA. So you have all these get-right spots between non-Power 4 programs. They're one of 2 top 10 teams, Penn State included, that does not have a Power 4 win at this point. To be fair, they've only played 1 Power 4 team, that being the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. But we don't really know what we have with Texas. We know we have a good defense, but that's more based on the merit of them beating on bad opponents. And then we think they have a good defense based on how they played against Ohio State, but Ohio State's offense has also kind of looked a little shaky. So what do we really know at this point? Well, I think I have a good defense with Texas. I think I have the better play caller with Texas. I think I have the better rushing attack with Texas. But then we talk about Florida. And if this was in Austin, we could be talking about a game that would be more than likely a blowout. Texas is what? Probably a 9.5 point favorite, probably bumps up to 10. I think this is a great spot for Florida to punch up a little bit, because at the end of the day, even though they're 1-3, and I think, either Bussin' with the boys or Josh Pate made a fair assessment when they said if these 2 teams were to swap their schedules, what would Florida look like right now? They probably would be 3-1. Probably wouldn't be as close with Ohio State, but they would be 3-1. And Texas probably loses potentially to Miami. I think that's a fair assessment. They probably don't lose to USF. But both of these teams, I think, are relatively close in terms of talent. But the little differences is potentially what you trust. I don't think there's any kind of trust that people have with Florida right now, and rightfully so. What have they earned at this point to get this blind trust as a 1-3 program that could be potentially looking at a completely new regime by the end of this season? Even maybe after this game, if it's a blowout, Texas walks into your stadium, kind of like what we saw with Miami last year, what we saw with Texas A&M. The swamp, as scary as it's presented, may not be the reality. Now, I think there's a couple things to note here. When we're talking about these 2 programs, outside of the fact that they're a bye, the different expectations, they're both terrible on third down. If we want to get granular on terms of what the offense is, it's not just that they're struggling to create explosives. It's not just they're not the most, prolific offenses in terms of points. It's a third down issue. When you get these teams into 3rd and longs, especially Florida, it's not pretty. They cannot continue drives and create quality on a consistent basis. Now, luckily for Florida, they're at home. On the contrary, they do not commit to the run. Now, one thing to point out is both teams, or at least Florida, is like in the hundreds in terms of a lot of rushing statistics. They don't really commit to it. They put a lot of weight onto DJ Lagway, which you get the result of what we saw against LSU. Jaden Baugh has had good moments. If you put up the tape, the guy is efficient. I think he's averaging, 6 yards per carry damn near. It's not like he's putting up 2.7 like LSU did against Ole Miss. They are good at what they do, but the problem and what truly becomes the issue is the lack of commitment to the identity that Florida could be a ground and pound team. And it takes less weight on a DJ Lagway. It potentially makes looks a little bit easier. I think anything to take that type of responsibility off of a young quarterback like Lagway, that you could see the pressure starting to get to him. And also reportedly, it sounds like over the bye week, maybe an injury gets a little bit more healed. I do think this game could be very close, because on the opposite side with Arch Manning, I watched a film study from the Film Guy Network. They do fantastic work over there around the Sam Houston State game for Arch Manning. And there was a moment that it kind of clicked when he got popped on, I believe it was a quarterback counter, go follow your tight end. He got popped a little bit. And it may have been the play that the Sam Houston State player taunts a little bit. And then obviously we saw what happened where Arch goes, scores a touchdown, stands over the guy. It became a whole thing on Twitter, which it was a nothing burger in my opinion. If you've never played the sport of football, then I don't know what to tell you. That's just emotion. I don't want my quarterback to be a complete robot, be invested into the game, but that's not the point. I think they found something around Arch that when he's in a clean pocket, he's not really trusting what he's seeing, which is a red flag in year 3, but he hasn't played a ton of live football for the Texas Longhorns at this point. When they get him on the move, changing the spots, get him in the running game, he looks a lot better because he's not having to think as much. He's making a quick read, get the ball out, and he's not trying to rip it as hard. They were talking about how he's trying to put everything, every ounce of mustard into every single throw. And what happens is because you're throwing as hard as you can, the ball hits the dirt a lot more. And it happened a lot in Ohio State. It happened a lot over the month of September. And it happened in the same Houston State game. But it didn't happen when he was having to not really think as much and not try to rip it as much as possible. And so I think when we're looking between these two programs and the quarterbacks and trying to get right, because that's the theme. What can we do to get right? How can I trust the play calling from Billy Napier to get Lagway right? Outside of the idea that they're at home, they're coming off of a bye, they have all this time to prepare. They haven't earned that trust. I know I'm focusing a lot on the offenses, but it's truly from the fact that both of these defenses are going to be good. The total's at 42, I think when I just checked, it was going down. They think it's going to be an ugly game. And so when each drive, both of these teams are going to stall out. They're going to struggle at points. And I think it's also a complete fair assessment to say when these two teams faced last year, there was no Lagway. And I believe every single touchdown scorer except for Wisner is not with the Texas program. You can make a fair assessment and say that the Texas interior defensive line has not really been tested in a run game. But to be fair, Florida hasn't been one to rely on that aspect. And neither of these offenses have a true identity right now. But based on, I guess, if I was to look at a resume, I guess I have to trust Sark in this situation to get Arch comfortable. Maybe they found something. We're talking about trying to start a fire here, and it's just spark after spark after spark. And maybe I saw a little bit more to trust with Texas. Obviously, they probably have the talent edge. They have more of a pedigree, but they also have the more pressurized system here where Florida, it's kind of you could throw the kitchen sink, pull out the fake punt, pull out the flea flicker at this point. Because what do you have to lose? If Billy Napier gets fired, DJ Lagway more than likely leaves that building. Jaden Ball, plenty of talented players leave that building. It's all over from that point. And if you were to go beat Texas, and you're this Florida program that was basically writing off Billy Napier, just waiting to see, do we want to make this decision now? Do we want to do it in the middle of the season? You look around to your left and your right, and you're saying, well, he's able to go beat Texas. Maybe we wait this out because our past year and a half has been the most brutal schedule you can ever find. And sure, it doesn't get immensely easier, but anything is better than what we've just been dealing with. Maybe it builds a little bit of momentum. Now it's time for a prediction because we've talked about all the ingredients here. And I think there's a reason. And I think all the things I've noted is the reason why it's only a 6.5 point favorite. Now, to be fair, on the road, add a couple points, they see a 9 point gap. I don't see that. I'm going to pick Texas because of a couple of reasons. A, that trust factor with Sark. Do I have a blind trust fall? No, I'm probably looking behind me. But Billy Napier, I have no faith that he would catch me. I at least have 30%, 45% maybe with Sark that he's going to catch me on a trust fall. Then paired with the fact that I think that when we're talking about Texas, they have enough ingredients to get right because I know for a fact that they have the running backs that they could lean into the run. I don't know what I'm getting with Florida. And honestly, with how this season has gone, and I said it on my TikTok at Tegan Randolph, shameless plug, I hate to say it, but I made a bet with myself. I said, I will put on a clown nose if Florida wins because I got burned and burned again and burned some more by this Florida program and Billy Napier and DJ Lagway. I had so much faith in this team. I'm not going to fall for the bait. I'm not going to see the cheese and see the death trap and go for it. I'm just not going to do it. And so I think it's going to be an ugly game. If you are a bettor, I would take the points of Florida. I wouldn't touch a money line. I wouldn't blame you, but I'm just not going to fall for it at this point. I think these teams talent-wise are close. I think they're eerily similar in play style. You get the home field advantage, but I think Texas's defense is just going to make one more play, one more just game-wrecking play that could potentially put them in a position to do a classic Texas Sarkisian win, which is maybe they get like a 6, 7, 8-point lead. It feels like it's a lot more, but it's truly like one possession on the teetering of two, and they kind of, boa constrictor style type of win. And I think Texas has the ability to do that. If you have any faith on an upset, just take the points. Don't risk yourself with a money line, because Florida will find ways to lose. And I think Texas is more than likely to find a way to win. Let's talk about the title, though. Is there a true contender in the SEC? Now, I'm not talking for the conference, because obviously any conference has a contender. It's not just going to be a conference full of pretenders unless you're talking to a Big Ten fan. What I'm talking about is there a national title contender? Not a college football playoff, a national title contender. And to me, to give you the definition, I think if you are a national title contender, you are someone that can go win the whole thing. And there's been this discussion, at least with how good the Big Ten looks with Ohio State and Oregon. Penn State, obviously, I would still throw them in there, but maybe they're a little bit behind the front too. And we could talk maybe about Texas Tech, Miami, all these different pieces that look really strong. Who from the SEC could be a national title contender? And there's been almost an opinion that maybe it's no one. And so what I've done is write down some of the names that could be potential contenders as we go into October, where we really start to define who's a tier 1 program. Now, it's not like it's going to be a tier 1 like we have like with 2022 Georgia, where, yeah, it's tier 1 and like compared to other national title contenders and some of the best ones of all time, regardless of the season, they're going to match up. We're talking in the silo of just what 2025 looks like in a tier 1. Georgia is still going to be there. We could talk about how they just lost to Alabama. Alabama's got their number. You're damn right about that. But if my memory serves me correct, I believe they lost the turnover battle. They easily lost the third down battle. They lost the penalties and all these different areas, and still was in a great position to win that football game. I still get the best coach in America with Kirby Smart. There's still a lot to like from them. Now, betting market, or if that game was hypothetically to come real between Ohio State and maybe Georgia, I lean Ohio State, and same for Oregon. I'm not even trying to compare those two, but to say there's a gap in tiers between them, I think that's a little disingenuous. I don't even think the teams from the other conferences in the ACC and the Big Ten, obviously not the Big 12, but don't disrespect Texas Tech, because I do feel like they're going to show out a little bit against Houston. Bama is obviously another one where their talent is right there with virtually anyone in America. My questions with them, we'll talk about in the Vanderbilt game. I'm curious if the way that they're getting third downs, is it sustainable? Because it's a unique way of doing it with the extension of the run game. But with how Ty Simpson is playing football, with the wide receiver core rivaling in Ohio State in terms of just talent and how good they've been playing, and the defense seeming to get better and better after each week. They got to taste their blood in the first week. Maybe that's the worst version of Alabama. We'll see for the rest of the year. We'll find out this weekend against Vanderbilt. But to say that they're not a true contender that could match up with Ohio State and Oregon, I have to disagree there. Now, Texas A&M, the number 6 team in the nation, I have to be careful with my words here, right? Because as a Texas A&M fan, I have years and years and years of experience of not wanting to actually sip the Kool-Aid and start them in these conversations with these types of teams. But with how they've been winning games early in the season, winning a rock fight against Auburn, the defense was playing like their hair was on fire. But then you're able to go win a 40-plus point game in South Bend against Notre Dame. I would not put them in the same tier as those teams, to make it very clear. But top of tier 2 pretty easily. Now, if they're able to do their job against, say, Mississippi State, Florida, at Arkansas, You still have at Texas and at LSU. You still have South Carolina on the board. There's plenty of spots here where the old A&M could pop up. But there's also plenty of opportunity to showcase yourself as a different program. And if they're able to be a team that's able to get the job done against the teams that they need to be getting the job done, that's a tier 1 program. But that's a contender. I wouldn't put them as a true national title contender just yet. They're on the watch list, if that makes sense. With Georgia and Bama, I still think them as national title contenders because I could see either of them winning it all. Oklahoma, I don't see them as a national title contender. And it's not even because of the John Mateer injury. Is it going to be a situation where if John Mateer is playing football, he's the best guy that is on the football field every single time he steps on there? Understandably so, yes. And that's going to give you a chance and a puncher's chance in any situation. But in a college football playoff where you're playing more games than ever, I think that could be any given Saturday a win. But I don't see that as a sustainable way of winning, although their defense looks fantastic. I just don't think they have a non-John Mateer way of winning. But we may get that with Michael Hawkins. If he's not able to play with Texas, they may find a new way to win because they don't have to rely on just John Mateer heroics. Texas, it's to be seen. It's to be seen. They have not earned the right to be a top 10 team. They're talented enough to be a national title contender. I can't definitively say that they are at this point. Ole Miss, number 4 team in the nation. Number 4. We do not know how high their ceiling is. Trinidad Chambly looks great. You can't put Austin Simmons in at this point. The defense is playing better. I would still put them in tier 2. I can't say that they can win a national title at this point. I don't think they've earned that yet. LSU, Tennessee, and Missouri. I know Missouri, if you don't mention them, they get viscerally upset. But those 3 programs, I think, are either going to be tier 2, tier 3. And I just don't see them as any true national title contender. So to answer the question, does the SEC have any true contenders? And when we talk about true, we're talking about national title winning contenders. I think they have 2 of right now, with that being Alabama and Georgia. To be fair, I'm very selective about teams that can go and win the national title. And so I truly do think that there's maybe 2 right now with a lot of potentials, a lot of teams that could easily step up in there. But it is October. This is the time we find out. So it's to be seen. Let's do some best bets. I originally was going to do Vanderbilt and Bama, but I want to save that. We'll do 2 more game previews to finish it. But the Stadium Pulse best bets, new segment on the show. I'm going to give you my 3 favorite bets. I'm going to keep track of them. If we go 0 for 12 for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to stay consistent. I don't have a model. I don't have a fancy equation here. This is based on how I'm reading the field. I do my own research on how these teams are looking and playing, and also the good old-fashioned gut check. I think Texas Tech is going to blow their doors off at Houston. I get it, rivalry spot. It's at Houston. 11.5 points. That's a lot for a double-digit win. Texas is the more talented team. I think they have the better offensive system. I think they have the better defense by far. Houston's kind of been skating by here. And I think if Texas Tech was to win by 10 points, they're probably going to win by 21. I just think they're going to blow the doors off of Houston. I would also take as many points as possible. If it gets to 12, if it gets to 11, I'm taking 10.5 with Vanderbilt against Alabama. We'll talk about that game a little bit more in detail, but I just really like this Vanderbilt team. I like what they've improved on. Some due regression for Alabama. These teams will potentially make it a rock fight, which will burn a lot of clock. And I would be shocked if this was a blowout. I think Vanderbilt's going to stick around in this game, and they're going to throw the kitchen sink at Alabama. 15.5 is a lot for Mississippi State against A&M. I get it. It's on the road. Kyle Field night game. They're wearing the blackout jerseys. It looks beautiful. They got script on the field. The thing is, A&M's defense, even though it was against Auburn, played their best performance. 75% of that is what I'm projecting is going to be played. And I think A&M's defense still has some ability or lack thereof of allowing some explosives. A team like Mississippi State with the wide receivers that they have, Now, I get it. Everyone's asking and expecting some regression from a Mississippi State team that doubled their win total from last year. Completely get that. It's 15.5 points. I'm not asking Mississippi State to win the game. 15.5 is a lot. I think a Texas A&M defense that could still be prone to some explosives. I fully expect Mississippi State to get some wins here and there. I expect Texas A&M's offense to look a little bit better. And all I'm asking here is probably, 38-24? That would do the job. That would be right where I need it to be. Backdoor cover is definitely available here. And when you get a good offensive mind, Blake Shapen's playing well. I understand it's a letdown spot after how they lost against Tennessee last week. A&M's definitely going to have Mississippi State on the radar. It's not going to be something that they just sleepwalk through. But 15.5 against an SEC opponent that's playing well, it's a lot of points. So it could be bait, but I'm taking it. The rematch. Diego Pavia has already started talking. Alabama versus Vanderbilt. College game day is going to be in town. Bama's favored by 10.5 points. What are the X factors here? Outside of Diego Pavia, because everyone wants to talk about Pavia. Understandably so. It's Diego Pavia. He's saying that as long as we do our jobs, it shouldn't be close, which is fantastic coach speak, by the way. But with that in mind, here are the two X factors that I think are most important. Number one, it's the Vanderbilt offensive line. This is the area that I think people aren't going to notice until this game of what has improved with this Vanderbilt team. It's truly been the size and who they've brought in from the offseason that has made this Vanderbilt team a little bit more intense, a little bit more physically dominant. Because unlike last year, you had some heroics from Pavia, but the team was still flawed. They've gotten stronger. They've gotten the SEC size. Is it the most, technique perfect situation where you're getting 5 NFL starters? No, but they have the size, so they're not going to get pushed around. Pavia is getting protection, and they're still running their system to a T. They're not going to be on third down. They're going to be efficient. That's why I think when we're talking about potentially them covering 10.5 or maybe even winning, they're going to squeeze the game. They want this to be in a telephone booth. They want this to be a rock fight. They want to get dirty. They want to get bloody. That's what Diego Pavia wants this game to be. And for Alabama, we really get the same test that we had with Florida State, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt last year. Because unlike the Georgia game, which I understand Gunner didn't have the most test with his legs as like what we've seen with the previous iterations, and even take Oklahoma out of it. I think with Florida State and Vanderbilt, the option play, the way that they run their offenses, test the communication of the backers and the secondary players in a way that's very unique from a week-to-week basis. Kind of similar to what Georgia Tech ran with their triple option. You basically have to scrap your entire defensive scheme and playbook because you're going to have to play in a completely different fashion. Now, when you go into the modern version of what, Gus Malzahn likes to run, what they like to do at Vanderbilt, you don't have to scrap everything, but your communication has to be on point because little hesitations there, not communicating here. That could be the difference of a 3-yard gain or a potential tackle for loss. And it's a 6-yard, 7-yard gain on a consistent basis. And so what I begin to wonder is with the size of Vanderbilt's offensive line, can they lean on Alabama? Can they be able to convert third downs extensively? Because I don't know if Vanderbilt's defense is going to be able to stop the trio of wide receivers. And to be fair, last year when they faced off against each other, Vanderbilt wasn't, just locking up Alabama. Yeah, we had the downside of, Jalen Milroe in that floor, and that goes to why I might lean Alabama is because I don't think the floor of Ty Simpson is as bad as what we saw with Milroe. Obviously, it may not match the ceiling with the rushing threat and all the different capabilities Jalen Milroe had, but the floor and the volatility is what I think you could trust a little bit more with the Alabama offense and the consistency. What I want to see, because Ryan Grubb did a fantastic job against Georgia, they didn't run great because the way that they run the football is a unique and more modern take on it of what you'll hear probably plenty of times. The commentators are going to say the extension of the run game. And what is that? We're talking the quick screens, the toss play that ends up being a pass. I think of, what was it, Bernard to Horton, the quick plays that you have to bang, bang, make a quick decision in these short yardage areas. And it may be a reception, but it's technically more towards a rushing attack. It's very creative. Grubb does a fantastic job. Grubb is, for what it's worth, because as a Seahawks fan, I've had plenty of experience of a Ryan Grubb offense. It doesn't work at the NFL level because you need some sort of capability and schematics of an actual running game. You can't just rely on the way that you're doing it, what happened with Georgia, but it can work at the college level. What I begin to be curious about is it sustainable? I think Jam Miller, if he's able to find success, it's a moot point. If they're able to find any success with these running backs, it's a moot point. Because I think Alabama's going to have plenty of ways to beat Vanderbilt with their offense against their defense. Back to the original point, though, the tackling, the communication with this Alabama defense. Can they step up? It's not going to spook them. It's not, as much as it's spooky season, it's not going to surprise them. They know exactly who Vanderbilt is. But paired with that, Vanderbilt knows exactly their identity. Kind of like Georgia Tech. They know exactly what their limits and capabilities are, and they're just going to execute better than you. And so that's why I'm taking Alabama to win, but Vanderbilt to cover. And to elaborate on that, I think Vanderbilt is going to be someone that's going to not shoot themselves in the foot. If they do, it's a blowout by 21 points. But Vanderbilt is not going to be a team that makes mistakes. Pavia is not going to be one that turn the ball over. They are not going to be the reason that they lose this football game. The truth is, and why I think they're going to lose to Bama, is because of that floor that Ty Simpson has. He's not going to lose them this game. He's going to be able to create more quality drives on a higher frequency. And I think what Alabama is going to want to try to make this game to be is kind of lean back and say, all right, Vanderbilt, how many times can you score 7 versus 3? I think we can get 7 every single time we step on the field with Horton, Bernard, Williams. I think we could get 7 more than you guys can get 7. And squeeze the game all you want, but we're going to be able, out of 9 drives versus your 9 drives, we're going to be able to put up more points. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be close by the time we get to the third quarter. It's an emotional game. I'm curious on what Alabama's emotions are going to look like, because I wonder what happens, very similar to maybe even Georgia. I'm trying to think of an example here, but and maybe it's a better said to say, what happens if you have your emotions so high in a game like this? Because obviously the motivation is clear here. What if the motivation is so high, but Vanderbilt goes up 10-0? The pendulum swings all the way down. Now, to be fair, when they went and faced Georgia just last week, it was business trip. Everyone that was on that field could tell you right then and there, it's a different Alabama team. They're on a business trip. Are they going to allow their emotions to get the best of them? This is still a penalized team. They get heavily penalized. They didn't do it against Georgia. Pendulum swing. They're due for regression in that area. Maybe it happens against Vanderbilt. But as much as my soul wants to take Vandy, I'm just going to take the points, leave the money line at the door, not touching Bama money line, not touching a money line across the board. I think it's just going to be a close game. But I think Alabama is going to win and find a way to win. Florida State and Miami doesn't get talked about enough. If you are a younger college football fan and you don't know about this rivalry, the U documentaries are a perfect way of at least getting a taste of it. Just do your research around it. It's a great rivalry. If you don't know about the wide left 1, 2, and 3, or 4, 5, and 6 at damn near at this point, educate yourself. But Miami travels to Florida State. They're 5.5-point favorites in what's going to be their first true road test. Now, the challenge here in making a prediction and previewing this game, Florida State's path to victory doesn't split off. It's direct. You know exactly what they have to do. Pardon me for the camera. You know exactly what they're going to have to do to win this game. Run the damn ball. Doesn't even have to be the most efficient night. Squeeze the game, limit the capabilities of Carson Beck and this offense, make every single drive count, make those 3 and outs hurt a little bit more, and run the damn ball. Because when Tommy Castellanos, he throws the football, they don't win a lot of football games. What was it? When he throws for over 251, he's 1-5 in his career. Now, in your favor, if you're a Florida State fan, your defensive backs and what we talked about with Vanderbilt, you know, your defensive game plan, if you're Alabama or if you're Miami this week, is a completely different script than you're probably used to. You're going to get tested in a way that you have not been tested all season, potentially in your career, because of how they're going to ask you to communicate and tackle on the outside. Because if they find a weak link, if you're a corner that's willing to get pancaked by these wide receivers, Deuce Robinson can get in your face and pancake you every single time. You're going to get targeted time and time again. Not in a way of we're going to throw a 50-50 ball, in a way that we're running at you every single time because you're the weak link. And Gus Malzahn's going to find a way to do it. We could talk about the fact that Florida State just lost to Virginia. It feels like the wind in the sails is all gone. The mystique and the hype around this game went away, and I don't know why, because Florida State is a team that clearly can win a game like this, especially at home. You don't know what you have in the makeup of a program until they go on the road. Everything could be fine and dandy when you're in your own locker room. You've been practicing all week. You're comfortable. What do you look like when you go on the road? And the reason why, if you're a Miami fan and you feel pretty good, is because Carson Beck, he's seen a lot. He's played a lot of football. So your head commander-in-chief, it's not like he's going into a road environment for the first time, especially knowing that he's played in the SEC. But my concern for Miami isn't the defense of Ruben Bain. They've played great. Maybe the secondary, they're going to get tested, but I do think they're going to find success at the end of the day because of how well they've been playing. Still a question, how are they going to play against this type of offense? But it goes to the point of what I'm actually trying to get to is, do we comfortably believe in Mario Cristobal? I'm going to pause there. Don't pin the question onto, Florida State and their coaching staff. Don't pin it to the OC and Shannon Dawson. I'm just focusing on Cristobal. Is he a coach at this point in his career and at his tenure at Miami? Can you confidently, without a shadow of a doubt, say that I am pretty comfortable that he is going to have this team fully prepared every single week with no worry? I'm not there yet with Cristobal. That's not a discredit to him. He's always been able to bring in talent at this program, and maybe it clicked at 2025, and we're looking at 2026 behind and be like, man, 2025 was the year that Cristobal elevated himself from good to elite head coach, because he's always been great about talent acquisition, but some of the decisions that happen once we hit the Saturday, not even just Saturday, once the ball is snapped, that there's been these moments where you're like, this team is either not ready, they played down to their opponent, or even to a point of just some bad decisions throughout the makeup of a game that cannot be quantified. This could be an easy spot that the Miami of the old regresses down, and you have what we call in the business wounded animal mode from Florida State. You got punched in the mouth against Virginia. Honestly, better said, trampled from how that stadium rush went. The field rush, pardon me. You got trampled by Virginia. You come back home, rivalry spot against a team that you hate. Ruben Bain's talking about how Tommy Castellanos, barbecued chicken, all these different factors. And I think even though Miami could probably win this game in 6 different ways, the fact that Miami is the better program right now, Miami's probably the more talented team. They are moving the ball at a better rate. I'm picking Florida State. I'm picking Florida State because I have not fully felt like I could trust Mario Cristobal in these types of spots. And I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to get to Sunday, get in front of this microphone, in front of this camera, and say, I was wrong about Mario Cristobal. He is a coach I can trust every single week to avoid letdown spots. And I think they're due for one. And I think this is a easy spot that you could see and say, maybe that defense, yes, improved, but isn't indestructible. Isn't maybe a top 5 defense in the country. Because truthfully, it's one of those spots where if I keep telling myself, yeah, Miami, they're just a freight train. Doesn't matter if they're on the road. We're sitting there going, yeah, they're just going to be an easy pickings. They're going to just go beat down Florida State. And who knows? Maybe we just get another version of wide right part 18, wide left. Who knows? But when I was writing the notes for this, and to the chat's point, yeah, Miami's more than likely better in every single facet. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, offensive line, defense as a whole, coaching staff. But college football doesn't ever make sense. Logic is not something that should be applied to the sport. And my biggest upset pick of the week, I was tempted by Florida. I was tempted by Vanderbilt. And sooner or later, I'm going for the cheese. I'm picking Florida State. With that in mind, guys, thank you guys so much for watching today's show. We have done back-to-back like 40-plus minute shows. The Stadium Pulse is going to continue to grow. It's not an if. It's not a why, maybe. I just know what's going to happen. So I appreciate every single one of you guys for taking the time to watch today's show. We could cover Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State, they're going to cover the 15.5. We talked about it. Best bets. Because I know who's commenting right now. And you're going to hate these. I'll go over the best bets real quick before we close out. Texas Tech, 11.5 over Houston. Vanderbilt plus 10.5 over Alabama. Mississippi State, 15.5 over A&M. But with that in mind, guys, I will see you for the Sunday show at, I believe, 2:30 Central. We're going to be doing just recap of the show. Probably do an updated bracketology list as we go into October. A little bit further into it, but we got to wrap up here. Go enjoy some college football, and I will see you guys next time.